some point about the way to achieve wealth in under 10 years is by having a business. It's by creating a business. And I can go through example after example of business owner who I have had the privilege of watching go from just, like most of us started out just like struggling paycheck to paycheck to getting into a business and then building that business. And it starts out slow, and you've got this curve that over the first couple of years doesn't seem too impressive. And then all of a sudden starts to build and build and build. And then by the time you get to year 10, you business that plus, and then you can do anything you want with it from there, because now you've got the financial capital to say, well, I want to scale this to 5 million. I want to scale it to 10 million, or maybe want to cash out and get a 7-figure exit and then move on and do something else. Like there's a formula here, there's a path here, and it doesn't require any kind of new or novel business idea to follow that path. It's the janitorial companies, it's the marketing agencies, it's the plumbing companies, it's pick an industry where someone is making money. And if you get in and do a good job, there's a market there. And that's why there are so many of these companies, and you can create something that has real value to it, the actual enterprise value of the company. And that enterprise value is the key to achieving a level of financial and success that just can't achieve as an employee or the normal employee in a normal time frame. You can do this, or you can put money into a 401k for years and then for the best there. So this is the key. This is the way. But the whole hang up is the idea of enterprise and creating something that is bigger than you and bigger than just a job, so that either you can step away from it and move into other things that you're passionate about, or so that you can continue to grow it, even if you're actively involved, which you can't do if you're handling everything. And or if you want to sell it. In any of those three cases, in order for it to really be an enterprise, it has to be something that is bigger than you, which means you have to have a team of people helping you, which means, employees, and it means management. It means all that stuff that comes with it. And that is the thing that sinks so many businesses and or either sinks or halts their growth. And stops them from really achieving this. So that's what I want to talk about today. And I wanted to actually start out with just by telling I guess a story of when this has gone, like 2 examples of when this has gone wrong. So literally yesterday, I was on the phone with someone, a business owner who has a partner, and the partner is really concerned with bringing on employees. So they have this business that's in the service industry. Again, it's a good business. It's profitable. It's just the 2 of them with a couple of contractors, and they're doing great. Like they're going to be over $1 million in revenue this year with like a 50% profit margin. So phenomenal business. But they're both getting up close to retirement age, and they're trying to figure out what they're going to do with their business. It's nothing they can sell because it's based on them. And they don't have any employees who can do what they do because they haven't wanted, to have employees. And I was talking with this partner yesterday, and he was saying that, he kind of was open to the idea, but his partner doesn't want to deal with an employee because I guess they've had some bad experiences in the past, and they're concerned about managing them and keeping them accountable and setting up the right roles and going through all that stuff. And I get it. It is a headache. And most of us entrepreneurs, there's a great book called The E-Myth that hopefully most everyone has read. And that E-Myth book talks about, we're basically technicians that got hit by an entrepreneurial seizure, that decided, we're going to just do this our own way. But we're not managers. We're not organizational thinkers. We are people who are good at doing the thing. So how do we transition from that into building an organization and not getting like this company's bottleneck now is their organizational structure. They can't grow anymore or much more because they're going to grow beyond what they can handle, and they can't retire and can't sell the business or can't, retire just keeping the cash flows of the business unless they accept that challenge and build an org structure. And then another example is a client that we had a couple of years ago who had built this business, but didn't have a solid org structure. And because they didn't have a solid org structure, they got too bloated in some areas of their business and ended up going like $1 million into debt as this ship was sinking. And they were willing to have employees, but they hadn't set it up correctly to be able to understand where they needed employees. So they had excesses in some areas and bottlenecks in other areas. So that's what I want to talk about today and go through the key areas of your business and what you need to be thinking about in terms of building a team for this. So I mentioned the E-Myth. That's a really good book. If you haven't read the E-Myth, I would really encourage you to get that and have it as one of your kind of foundational items of your knowledge as a business owner, because it'll really help you to think as a business owner and not just as a self-employed person. The second book that I would really encourage you read is Traction by Gino Wickman, and that talks a lot about how to actually implement some of the ideas that are they're not related books, but the book Traction talks a lot about how to implement kind of the concepts that are within the E-Myth. And if you can put those two books together, you'll get a lot of value from them. And I've pulled everything that I'm going to be talking about today from, some from those two books and some from my own experiences and knowledge, and turn it into what I consider as the way to develop an organization that can actually scale and grow. And, I will fully admit also that to give some of my own story, I built an accounting firm. I started my accounting firm. I grew it. It was successful by all measurements, except that I was sick of it. I hated it. I was burned out. And I just got exhausted by it. And there were several reasons for that. But one of the core reasons is that I did not do a good job at building a team and an organization to support me. And so I ended up just having too much going on. And I ended up selling it. And I don't regret any of that. Back to like this chart, I've watched client after client after client do exactly this and get to 7-figure wealth in less than 10 years. And do it through entrepreneurship. And in fact, I did the same for myself. And this is a clear path for financial success and freedom. And I believe in it 100%. And just as importantly, more importantly, because ultimately, we're all going to die and we're not going to be able to take anything with us. And so if you extend out the timeline for, we can extend it out however short or long you want to make it. You can always make it long enough to where nothing we do here, really matters in the long-term perspective, and nothing we do in our businesses or career matters. But what I believe does matter in the long term is our own development through this. And that as much as the financial benefits, the actual development piece, becoming better people, being forced to learn new things and get out and grow in areas that we otherwise wouldn't have to if we were just working a job for someone, is one of the maybe is the most important benefit of going down this entrepreneurial journey. So, I ended up selling my business. I don't regret it. It was, it was a good choice. Everything worked out, but that doesn't mean I would do it the same if I were going to do it again. I wouldn't sell it. What I would do instead is lean in more to the actual organizational structure and focus more on implementing some of the things that I'm going to talk about today to create an organization that could scale without it just putting additional burden on me and on my shoulders. And if I had learned that 5-10 years sooner, I would have had a much better firm that I wouldn't have been burned out with, and I could have continued to scale. And again, I don't have any regrets. Everything worked out fine. But and the point there is that you don't have to be perfect in order to do this, right? You can make a lot of mistakes along the way and still achieve this kind of this kind of a result in 10 years. But if you can avoid the mistakes, all the better. So there are 5 core functions within an organization. You have marketing. Whoa, that's not a pen. Let's go here. 5 core functions. You first have marketing. Next, you have sales. Then you have operations. This is the actual delivery of the good or service. You need to have finance. And finally, you need to have HR or team building or whatever you want to call it. HR sounds boring and has kind of a bad rap for, being like bureaucratic, but it's the ability to bring into your organization really good people, train them and enable them to succeed, and retain them for the long term. And if you're going to grow in your business, you have to know these 5 things. You can't, like obviously we talk a lot about tax and finance and profits, right? But you can't just do that thing. You have to do that thing. And the reason why we spend so much time on it and why it's why there's such a market for it is because the people who are really good at sales and marketing sell sales and marketing as though they were the only things you needed to do to have a successful business. And they're sort of, if we can help you sell, you'll be a millionaire, and which is not necessarily true, at least not for like sustained wealth. You have to have the other piece. You have to be able to deliver the thing you're selling and deliver value to people. You have to have the financial foundation in place to be able to keep the money that you make and not lose control of your expenses, not pay all of it in tax, and be able to have a plan where the financial information can help you guide your business and identify what's not working. That business owner who I talked about, who had, ended up with $1 million in debt, he had a ton of employees here in operations and employees in sales. He didn't have enough in marketing, so he wasn't consistently bringing in enough leads for those salespeople to close. And he didn't have enough in finance. And because he didn't have enough in finance, he wasn't able to understand that this was coming. So being solid in all of these areas is the core of having a successful organization or enterprise. And to start with, of course, it's you here at the head, right? You're the visionary. And then you have all of these different areas, and your name is in each one of these boxes. So to start off with, you're this and you're this and this and this and this, and that's fine. But you'd have to understand that you have these different roles and that they're all your responsibility, and that you can't realistically expect to succeed long-term if you're occupying all these roles, but you're only paying attention to the sales and marketing ones. Or what's more common, what we usually see is you're paying attention to marketing, sales, and operations. And that's it. And nothing on the finance and nothing on human resources or developing your team. That's the most common path. So what do we do to fix it? We have to understand a couple of key principles. The first one is something I talk about a lot for tax and finance, because this is one of the areas that nobody wants to deal with, right? It's this one. I'd rather ignore it and focus on the things that I know, because I don't understand finance and HR. This is like, you can't outsource any of these 5 items and succeed long term, I believe. And I say that as someone who's not a sales and marketing guy and who would rather just outsource that. But I can't. I have found that over and over again. I can't just outsource it to someone else. I have to understand it well enough that I know what needs to happen. I know the principles. I know how to get the result that I want. I understand, messaging well enough. I understand the advertising channels well enough. I understand all of that. Then I can take it and I can delegate it to someone else, but I can't do that until I own it. So the key here is ownership. Owner. You have to own your role as the center of this world, and that no one's going to care as much as you. No one's going to care about building your team as much as you. No one's going to care about your marketing. No one's going to care about your operations. And again, the one that we usually think about this for is operations. We say, yeah, I need to actually do the operation and then create a chart so I can delegate, or create a system so that I can delegate this to someone else. And then, you can bring them in and do it. We think about that for operations, but we don't often think about that for sales or marketing. We just say, we'll just outsource that. They'll take care of that piece, or even the finance piece. I'll just send this off to my CPA. They'll take care of it. They'll get me a good result on my taxes. They'll do whatever. And then we don't take the time to actually think about it and understand it and learn the principles behind it. And so then we're at the mercy of whoever we've outsourced it to. And if they go out of business, or if they have their own internal troubles and start to give a non-thorough service, we're not available, we're not informed enough to understand it. So you have to take this role as the CEO and the one who has to understand all these processes. Then you can have people that are helping you in one area or another, but ultimately all of those things fall to you. You are the head of this. And so you've got to take the initiative to understand, what do you need to do for marketing? What do you need to do for sales? Operations, again, is the one that is most common, not the issue, because you know the thing that you're doing. But you have to understand about your finances, and you have to understand about human resources and what processes you need to take and implement in order to grow. And then once you understand one of these, so the first one is taking ownership of it, right? Step 1, your name is, you're the visionary and you're all of these if you don't have any team members yet. Step 2 is delegation. And that effectively means that you create processes. So when you understand something well enough, you create processes, and then you can bring someone else on and you can say, okay, I have a system that works. I own it. I have a system that works for marketing. So I'm going to take that now and I'm going to delegate it to someone else, to Bob. And now you can hold Bob accountable because you understand what it is, and you can start to build that out. I chose marketing. I probably shouldn't have. That's not a great example. It's not the first one that I would delegate. Honestly, the first one to delegate for most people is operations. And that's the one that they most often think to delegate. And it's probably the one that they most often should delegate, because it's the one that you have the best understanding of and grasp on. So it enables you to hold people accountable better, to build better processes, to give more clear instructions, and give your team a better understanding of what they need to do to succeed. The better you understand it, better you can build a team to deliver it. So then you take one of those, and that allows you to get that off of your plate and then focus on one of the other ones. But you have to understand that like, again, these are the 5 functions. The first one, again, is ownership. You have to own these. Then you can start to delegate them, and you put someone else's name in a given position, and you can move that, you can move that along and get it off your plate. So the first one that I would delegate is operations. The second one that I would delegate is actually the finance piece. Now, that doesn't mean that you don't need to know it. Again, that is the case with all of these. You have to have a knowledge and understanding of what to do and what you need, and then you can hold people accountable for that. But the second one usually is finance. You can get that off. There's a lot of work there that you don't need to be doing. What you need is the results and the information, and to understand it well enough to make use of it. The third one that I would generally delegate is the HR and recruitment. And then the fourth one is sales. And the fifth one is marketing. And the reason for that is the marketing is the closest thing to your personality and your individual brand. It is very difficult to delegate that. You can get help with it, but it's hard to just walk away from it and not be involved with it. So that's usually the final tier of like directing the message and understanding how to expose new people to your business is usually the last thing that you'll delegate, just because it's perhaps the most difficult to systematize and take the essence of you and move it into your messaging. So those are the 5 core functions and the 2 main steps at a high level of how to approach this. And again, the first, at the risk of being redundant, I just cannot emphasize enough the biggest thing that I see entrepreneurs miss on this is the first step of taking ownership of it. We don't take ownership of it because we're busy, and because we don't want to deal with some of these things. So we just say, we'll let someone else handle it. I'm sure they'll do fine. They're a professional. And then we stick our head in the sand, and then we end up with blind spots in our business that hold us back. And the last concept I wanted to talk about is just that of bottlenecks. Where is your bottleneck? What is holding your business back? Is it marketing? Do you have enough new leads coming into your business? Is it sales? You're converting those leads into new business? Is it operations? You're having trouble fulfilling and keeping the people happy that do buy? Is it finance? You don't know what's going on necessarily with your finances. You don't know where your money is going. You don't have a proactive plan, so you don't know how much cash necessarily you're going to have in 2 weeks or a month or even 3-6 months down the road. Is it human resources? You would like to hire, you're ready to hire, but you don't have anyone good, or even you have a team and you have like one person who's really good and then a bunch of people who are kind of mediocre. Like where are you at? What is the thing that's holding you back from growth? Because if you get this right, if you get the organization right, you are going to be able to scale and be able to actually have control and ownership over your business and your life as you scale, not be owned by your business, but be fulfilled by it. And last, I guess, story I wanted to use to wrap up is that of another one of our clients who has a marketing agency, and they actually started going down this process. They realized they were having trouble scaling, and at about that same inflection point where I sold my firm and where a lot of entrepreneurs will end up selling because they're overwhelmed, they leaned into it and they said, okay, we've got to figure out this organizational piece. We've got to get the right people in here who can actually help us with this. And we need to take ownership of it. We can't just delegate this thing to someone else and say, someone come in and fix our organization. We need to learn this. We need to understand it so that we can then get the people in here who can do it. And they now have gone from that like $1 million a year threshold to over $10 million a year. And they they took off because they had the right organization. So they stopped, they stopped being, they stopped having, they gained the ability to see their business clearly, understand where the bottleneck was that was stopping them from growing, and then open that bottleneck. And then you go to the next one and open that bottleneck, and go to the next one, open that bottleneck. And that just creates this accelerated growth path. That is what a lot of us think about when we think about entrepreneurship, but we don't always get to. And again, like if you take one thing away, actually, I hope you take two things away from this. The first one is ownership. You take ownership of these 5 core functions of your business. It's your business. No one else is going to care as much as you. Take ownership of these 5 things. The second thing is, once you've accepted ownership of them, what's your bottleneck? And that's the question that I would like you to take away from this today, is think through this. What is your bottleneck? What is stopping you from going from wherever you are to where you want to go? For these people who are thinking about retiring, who I was talking to yesterday, they're thinking about retiring within 5 years, but they don't have a team. So what is their bottleneck? It's not sales or marketing right now. It's not operations. It's not even finance. It is human resources. They have to figure out the ability to create a team that can fill these different roles. And they can have resources. There are tools they can use to do that, but they got to figure that piece out. And for some of you, depending on where you're at, that might not be your bottleneck. It might be sales or marketing. But if that's the case, then figure that out. But take ownership of it. No one's going to fix it for you. You've got to own it. And then again, you can have people support you in that role. So that's the training. I will open it up here for a minute if there are any questions. And if not, we can wrap up. Okay, I don't see any questions, so we'll go ahead and close this up. If you guys do have any questions, reach out to us in the chat, and in Kajabi, hopefully everybody has access to that. If not, we're trying to be sending reminders out to make sure that you all have access and you know where that function is, so you can ask us questions on a random Tuesday if something pops up. And then we're going to be taking a couple of weeks off, actually, we're going to be taking a couple of weeks off for summer vacation. And then we'll be back August 17th. So there won't be any trainings next week, the week after, or whatever, for the next 3 weeks. And we'll be back August 17th. So we'll see you guys then. Hope you all have a great summer. And yeah, just let us know if you need anything. Thanks a bunch.